I stopped reading a ton of books and said, let me read these books and make it become my mindset. Very self-serving books, but what they teach you is that life is a game. Like, is wherever you are, you've got to be thinking like chess. It really depends on how far back we want to go. Like that conversation we just had.
Let's go there, man, because
Yeah.
I think, like, for our audience, man, it would be interesting to hear how you've transitioned from where you started to where you are.
Yeah, for sure. So, I suppose the best place to start would be back when I was originally in the fitness industry. So how they came about, fitness has always been a part of my life. Fitness has been an anchor for me, as much as it is for many other people. Like in a sense that it's, it's just something when all else fails, you can always fall back on your training. So it was an anchor point for me many years ago. It's almost 10 years ago now, come to think of it. Yeah, 10 years ago, almost to the day. I just had a couple health problems, and that forced me to kind of get back in, start from square one and get back in. Now, when I was getting back in, on the suggestion of a friend recommended that I start a Facebook page. Facebook pages were just starting, everything was going. And then what happened is I had a really small page, just nothing, close friends and family. Made a post, interestingly enough, and this is my first experience with things going viral, made a post about bullying in the gym. And I was just like, I'd experienced bullying. I said, it's really unnecessary. We shouldn't be doing that stuff. Don't do it. It's really stupid. Got about 10 to 15 likes, which was insane for me. I was like, oh, wow, that's a bit weird. And then overnight, I woke up in the morning, 10,000 likes, 30,000 shares. All of a sudden, my page went from like 300 people following to 11,000 overnight. And I was like,
Back then,
wow.
that would have been huge.
Yeah.
Back then, that would have been nuts.
Yeah, it was when those times when the algorithm wasn't as tight as it is now. So you could literally post something and it'd just go viral. So that happened. And what I just found myself with an all different career path. I was at a crossroads in terms of what I wanted to do. Again, like I said, go back to that fitness. That's the only anchor that I had. And it became a part of my life. I started doing the online coaching. So way back in the day, I think I was like one of the third or fourth people at the time that was doing it. One of the guys that I know, a good friend of mine who's still in the fitness industry, I think he can credit himself as being the first ever person. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Joseph Rakic. Good friends with him, but anyways, he started it. So I went down that path. Then it got quite interesting. I got to a point in the fitness industry where I was stagnating. And the reason why I was stagnating is, I don't like to get into it greatly, but there's a certain, I don't know how PC we need to be in this.
No, bro.
Okay, cool. There's a certain layer of bullshit, that's in the industry. And I resented it a lot. And
hey, don't worry, we still resent that.
yeah, but I think the thing that was started to get me is because people stopped giving me opportunities. Like I said to you, I had an opportunity with Shreds, which was a huge company back in the day, but I didn't like the way that they were going about things, so I let that go. EHP Labs at the same time, one of my friends who was their recruiter was trying to get me on board, but I just didn't like the label. What's that?
Sorry, bro. Just pull that away a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just
I just didn't like the layer of bullshit to it.
Yeah.
And I was very vocal about it. And what happened is that started causing stagnation in my growth. And all of a sudden, I started getting less clients. And it started not paying the bills, basically. And then I was at a crossroads with it because I was like, what do I do? This isn't becoming fulfilling anymore. I'm starting to look at everything negatively. I've got to figure out what I'm going to do because this is just not doing it for me. And that's when I started going back to basics, trying to figure out what am I good at? What was the foundations of just me as a person in terms of my skills? And I've always been good at maths was the first thing. I knew I was really, really good at maths. And selling. I used to work in real estate a very long time ago. Selling's just always been a big part of me. So I decided to take the plunge and just get rid of all my social media. So I got rid of all my Facebook, all my Instagram, took the dive. I was like, if I'm going to do this, I need to just go in the deep end or I'm not going to do it. And then so I deleted everything, cleared it so I couldn't get it all back. And then I was forced to actually pursue this career that I wanted.
That's such a big thing, man. Because it's your identity, bro. And that's the biggest thing with social media is like you build something over a long period of time and then all of a sudden that becomes you. Yeah. And that's such a bullshit thing, right?
Yeah.
And as much as because it's like the reality is it's social media is a perception, right? It's like how many people do we know that we look at their social media and we're like, that guy's a fucking dick, right? And then you meet him and he's actually okay.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, and I think that's kind of like, but also from the other side of it, right, with business, and like money and all these kind of things. Like it would be such a hard thing to do, to put yourself in a position where the thing that was bringing in the dollars, the thing that was, keeping the fucking food on the table and everything there, is all of a sudden it's like, nah, like that's it, I'm done, and I'm just going to make this decision to push it to the side and go all in on this other opportunity.
Yeah, well, that was it, and you couldn't have put it in a better way with it becoming you. Because what's worse is I did at the time. I'm sure some of the people that will listen to this will know Ziz. If everyone remembers Ziz, he was one of the original fitness personalities. Well, everybody started having a name, and my one was Swift. Now, where that came from, funnily enough, was my World of Warcraft. I'm a massive geek at heart. Used to play World of Warcraft heavily, and I used to always name my characters Swift. So there we go. Night Elf Rogue. If everyone plays that game, that's where Swift came from. So, and it compassed. Everywhere I went, people who knew me just called me that. And I was like, this is awkward. I was getting a bit older. I was in my 20s now. I was like...
Still calling me as my World of
yeah,
Warcraft name.
Yeah, that's it. Even now when people say it, I'm like, man, just call me Josh. Like, my name. It's there now. Don't call me Swift anymore. So, decided to pull trigger on it. I was barely putting food on the table at all. I was in a bad situation with the whole fitness thing. So I said, okay, forget it. Let's just cut it. Fuck it. Just get it off the table. So I deleted everything. And then I started thinking about, I want to be in finance. I want to be investments. I want to be around trading. And I didn't really have the background to justify it. But because I didn't have this to fall back on anymore, what I said to myself was, well, what do I need to do? I asked different questions. What's the bare minimum? So I started finding out in bare minimum to actually get an interview and get my foot in the door. So I was living in Perth at the time. I had no qualifications that allowed me to get in the industry. So I was like, I had barely any money. So I said, okay, let's try this diploma of financial planning. I think I did. I just did something to put it on the CV. So I did that. It was a year-long course. I did it in literally like 6 weeks just to get it out of the way. Got it out of the way, and then just started hammering away at different finance brokers and everything, trading brokerages and everything, just to try and get an interview. Got an interview this is how I ended up in Melbourne. Got an interview for a company that was operating here in Melbourne, and I interviewed very well on the phone because I had sales skills and everything, and I was going in a sales position, and they were like, yeah, you interview quite well, but we can't give you a job without meeting you in person. So, COVID now, you can probably get a job without meeting, but back then you couldn't. This was in 2017. So I took the risk, caught a plane over, had a family friend here, stayed with them, went and interviewed in person. I had pretty much no money at this point, and I got the job. They said, yeah, no, we'll give it to you. So all of a sudden, uprooting from Perth and coming over here. So that's how I ended up in Melbourne. So that's basically part one of the story, you could say. So that's me transitioning. So I went from that cold, hard phase of saying, this is not working out. I'm going to have to take a dive, jumping into things that I was just naturally good at, selling and good with numbers, figuring out what I needed to do to actually get to the table, which was just get something on my CV to make them show that I have some kind of interest in it, or at least some kind of qualification, and then, getting the job. So that's what pulled me to Melbourne.
With that whole transition, man, like we talk about identity and being the person that, I guess, used fitness as that anchor. How did you cope with that transition?
Well, it was kind of funny because, like I said, that it was my anchor. It actually got taken away from me when I was in the fitness industry. Because when your hobby becomes your life, you can lose interest in it really, really quickly. So for me, it was it was tough because it was like I had to swallow the pride, deleting all the social media and everything like that. Like you said, it's your personality. You're getting rid of it. So now you've just back at square one. But it forced me to adapt. It forced me to grow. And it made me reclaim the fitness side as well. So it made me kind of reclaim my anchor. So because I got it back, I used training as motivation again. I was struggling to train when I was in the fitness industry, but then when I was out of it, I was able to start training again. Like I got that passion back, and that kind of drove me to just keep pushing to figure out, like I said, when everything was going wrong on the outside, so if I wasn't getting interviews or anything like that, at least I know I'd get a good training session in that day.
Now that you obviously had made that transition, was there any skill sets that you took from building that business, albeit there was a little bit of luck involved, but you still built the business? Were there any skill sets that you took then into part two of this story of the new role that you kind of took on?
There was, and it was, I guess the biggest thing for me was being able to market yourself. I think, just be like one of the strongest things that I found was being able to present yourself and actually put yourself out there, and just be, especially in the corporate world, it's very hard to kind of put a face, get your face out there or your name. And I found that it was really easy for me because I just knew how to get people interested in things that I was talking about, basically. That's one of them. And just, I guess, fitness as a whole. Just the consistency and discipline that you get out of it. I think if there's one thing that I could have taken away from developing the business, it was because it was around fitness. I learned how to structure and actually get them done. So become what I like to call a box ticker. Like if I could put a few boxes in front of me, it became really easy to tick them because that was just a natural part of how I was pursuing my training. So those are the two main things that I took away from that.
So now if we fast forward this journey to, I guess, you went into that industry, and then you were, from my knowledge, in and out of that industry within a 2-year period, were you not?
Yeah, you're talking about the finance side of things? Yeah, so this is the interesting part. This is where it gets really, really interesting. So it's going to be hard to explain in a sense that I don't obviously want to put any names to anything, so I'll try and avoid doing that. But long story short, I had what they call a helicopter boss. I had a boss that was just constantly hounding me, looking over me, and taking control of everything that I did. And I found that I went from one stagnation to another. I enjoyed it. Obviously, I was fresh in the industry. I was learning how to trade. I was learning how to provide financial advice in that sense in terms of trading. But I wasn't getting anywhere. I was stuck in the same position for about the first 2 years. And every time I tried to do something that would put me in a better position, like come up with an idea or come up with something else to do, my boss would typically take it away from me. He'd go, that's a great idea, I'll do all the work, and he'd get all the acknowledgement. And then that's where I started
That's so common, hey, though. Like, that is so common. I've heard that so many times, like, where someone's like, someone comes to that person with an idea, and that person, because they're in a higher level of management, takes that idea, runs with it, and just uses that and gets all the accolades.
Yeah, that's it. It happens all the time, especially in the corporate world. It's very dog eat dog. Like you try to have faith. For the longest time, I try to have faith in my manager in terms of guiding my career. But you're effectively trusting someone with your life. At the end of the day, I like to think when it's all said and done, people will look out for themselves. And that's what I started noticing. Like when I began to start realizing that there were other aspects of work in terms of the corporate environment especially that I just wasn't emphasizing. So that's why I started learning you can be the greatest person at your job and still not make it anywhere. I think it's like how they say, you got to be the best version of yourself. Like that's the bare minimum. That's the bare standard.
I think it's such an important point because it's like you can have and I often think of this in business, right? Like it's like, especially in what we do, it's like you can have the most knowledge in the world, like as a trainer, as a in finance, whatever it is, you can have all the knowledge in the world, right? But if you're not putting yourself in rooms, right, that are going to give you an opportunity, you're not going to progress.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things. Like everybody, we kind of get into this point where we try to acquire so much knowledge, right? And we think that that's the thing that's going to take us to that next level. Because everybody we follow on Instagram, right, we look at them and we go, yeah, they're rich because they're a genius. Yeah, and it's like, that's just so far from the fucking truth. Like, the people that I know that are crushing it are the people that can fucking play chess. Yeah, they're the guys and girls that are fucking playing chess with the future. They know that by doing a certain thing, it's going to get them into this room. And they're just really good at playing that game. And yeah, they might be smart, but that's not the exact reason that's getting them into that room. It's actually more how they play the game.
Well, it's to Josh's point. If you look at, again, use your example between finance or fitness, being good at your job, it's not only the bare minimum, it's the fucking obligation. It's the thing you just need to do by default. It's the expectation of the industry you work in. But that does not dictate how far you move forward. Because as is the case in finance or in corporate in general, there are other people taking your opportunities every day of the week. You look at the competition in the fitness industry or any small business, there's a million people taking the opportunities you don't. And just because you have the idea doesn't mean shit.
And you've got to be able to market yourself, what you said before. Like, that's the biggest thing, right? Because it's like, if you can't market yourself, no matter how smart you are, no one's buying what you're selling.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And it's funny you bring up the chess analogy because I use that quite heavily because it's so true. You see those people, you always see certain people that come into an industry or into the working force, and you might have been there for 2 or 3 years, and people get that expectancy that if they've been there long enough, they make that career progression, right? They get that 2 or 3K per year for CPI just to cover, consumer prices going up. You're not really getting money because you're doing a good job. And then you see this one gun that comes in, and within a year, he's managing you. And you're just thinking, what are they doing? They're playing the game. And that's, funnily enough, there's a book, and I try not to say it out loud. It's very self-serving. You either love this book or you hate it. Have you ever heard of the 48 Laws of Power?
Yeah.
That's effectively my Bible. Like I've got 4 specific books that I read: How to Win Friends and Influence People, The Art of Thinking Clearly, 33 Strategies of War, which is done by the same person, the same author that did 48 Laws of Power. So those
Robert Greene.
Yeah. What I did is that mindset encompasses my mindset. I stopped reading a ton of books and said, let me read these books and make it become my mindset. Very self-serving books, but what they teach you is that life is a game. Is wherever you are, you've got to be thinking like chess. You've got to put a piece there so that you have an option of 5 or 6 different movements that way. Much in the same way you put another piece over there. And that's where I started changing my thinking. I went from being just an employee who did a great job to still being an employee that did a great job, but I did that to keep my manager off my back. Behind the scenes, I was looking for problems that upper management were having issues with. There was a specific issue in terms of communications between departments, and they didn't know how to fix it. So I walked away and came up with a solution. At the same time, what I was doing was developing a relationship with the CEO, because we were still quite a small company, so I had that opportunity, the access to the CEO, developing that relationship so that he knew my name. And it gets real deep. Like I started doing things like CEOs, they have a really strict regime. If he was going to get a coffee, it would always be at 11 a.m. That's an
100%.
opportunity to talk. If he goes to the bathroom, it's typically at 2 p.m. That's an opportunity to cross him in the hallway. That's how deep I started getting with it. Putting myself in front of him, talking with him, catching up with him. Then when I had the plan ready, my boss again was completely ignorant because he took his eye off me. Presented the plan to the CEO, promoted.
So, and I want to touch on this because it's really important. And some people look at that and go, that's conniving. Some people look at that and go, yeah, but you should, this is like you're doing it for the people thing, man. Like that whole fucking mindset. And the reality is, right, is like that you still offered value in that situation. Yeah, self-serving, yes, but you still offered value. Yeah. And I can honestly say, man, the reason I am in the position I am now, right, and it's it's not this big crazy position, but it's a position, is because I played the game.
Yep.
Right, I knew 6 months before something even happened that there was I knew exactly what I was doing.
Yeah.
There's networking, there's the travel, all of these things, right? 100% knew what I was doing 6 months before it was coming, and I knew that these potentials would come. And this is like the law of attraction. Yeah, it's not really the law of attraction. It's just fucking chess. It's game theory. It's psychology. I know every word that comes out of my mouth is going to affect my situation in about
2, 3, 4 months, wherever.
4 hours, 10 days, this bang on, right? And it's like, I went to America and I did a big run.
Sorry to cut you off, man. I can actually remember because we were working in the same gym at the time, right? You're like, I'm going to America and essentially the conversation, the short version of it was, I'm going to America to get in better rooms. It was, I'm going to America to meet people that will then introduce me to people that will then allow me to potentially create this business that I've got this vision for that's still 3 years away. Because I remember it clear as day, man. You said to me, we're in the gym, we're on the gym floor out the front of the PT office, and you said, we need to think of a way. We need to think of a way to help more people and get in front of more people, and the punchline, do less work. Because at the time, you and I were both fucking pumping sessions out of our ass.
Yeah.
It was just insane.
And I mean, honestly, man, like I just went and did it. And I knew that every conversation I had was going to end up in some type of situation where I was going to be in a room with someone. And when I'm in that room with someone, I crush.
You light it up.
Yeah. But I think that's the thing. Like, I think, I'll have conversations with people all the time, right? And I've got some very close friends of mine, one person who has absolutely hit the opportunity of a lifetime. And the conversation was, he did something to, like what you said, he met someone because he knew that person would like this thing and so on, and it just eventuated. But I think it's so important, man. I think because that's the thing a lot of people in business miss. It's not about how smart you are. It's not about how much knowledge you've got. It's about how well you can play the game.
Well, I'll just play devil's advocate for a second, right? Talking about conniving or manipulation. What you said is correct, where you said, offering value. But where the problem would lie is if you were like, cool, I'm going to meet this guy. I'm going to create the relationship. I'm going to solve the problem. But at the end of the day, again, I'm going to be so self-serving that I'm going to dust my hands with him, the person that helped me get up the run, and go, it was all fake. If I walk past you in the hallway, once you've given me what I want, I don't want to know you. That's where the problem lies. That's where people...
It's an integrity thing, right?
Exactly.
Like integrity's...
Yeah, it's interesting. Everyone is obsessed, especially if you look at social media now. They're obsessed with being themselves. The narrative's constantly be yourself, be your thing. And I just basically flipped that. Like, for me, being myself is being myself to the people that matter to me. Mm-hmm. And that's friends and family. If friends and family, I am 100% myself. I am just who you see. But when it comes to corporate environment, I'm what the environment needs me to be. I am exactly what I need to be and able to progress in that environment. If you try and push yourself to be yourself to everyone, then that comes with repercussions. That comes with doors being closed on you. That comes with people not liking you. That comes with you potentially shutting off an opportunity because people don't agree with you. I just realized at work, I was like, why would I need to do that? Why would I not have a conversation? This is how deep I used to get. I used to write, and I do this in my mentoring as well, teach people how to write profiles on managers and everything to get an idea of their likes and dislikes so you can better navigate conversations with them. A great example is one of our work colleagues. He loved golf. I love smacking a ball at a driving range, but I hate golf. But every time I had a meeting with him, I loved golf. I knew about everything that was happening in golf, and there were many times where I used that. A great scenario where I would use that is if we were having a meeting with multiple managers, and going back to chess, he was king in that meeting. If I got him on board, it means that the project will likely go through. What would I do? Meeting would be at like 2 or 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I would intentionally know that he's making his coffee at this time. I'll go and go, hey, did you catch what happened to Tiger Woods in the weekend? He'd be like, yeah, no, wild, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, blah, 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 cool. Go on to Slack, the intercommunications, send him a thing about golf and go, I've been thinking about getting these golf clubs. What do you think? Oh, yeah, they're fantastic. By the time we get to the meeting, he's had so many positive interactions with me that it's highly likely, unless my idea is horrible, that he's just going to agree. Being the kingmaker that he is in that scenario, everyone else just falls in line. So, it's self-serving, but it gets the purpose done, and I'm still trying to provide that value. At the end of the day, you've got to navigate around those egos. If I went in there without any of that preparation, I had to deal with managers have the worst egos. And I had to deal with everyone's ideas, everyone's things just because they wanted their voice to be heard. But because I got him on board early and he said, this is a fantastic idea, none of them wanted to piss him off. So they're like, yeah, fantastic. We all agree as well. Idea goes through. So that's what I mean. It's just like when I'm hanging out with friends and family, this stuff doesn't occur. I'm myself. But in the corporate environment, it's so important to be what you need to be to progress.
I think that's an actual valuable lesson to apply to business in general. I think, to Josh's point, people are so obsessed with being themselves and being their authentic selves, or what they want to show, that they potentially exclude themselves from being in rooms that potentially could grow their business. And in the world of business, this is where you look at people have personal pages and business page. Combine the two. Can your personality fit with your business? Does it actually mesh? Because oftentimes you see that there's a reason people separate the two.
Man, if I didn't have fucking a business, I wouldn't have social media.
Me either.
You know what I mean? I fucking hate it.
Same.
But I do what I got to do. Because I know that it's going to get me in rooms, and that's a part of my self-actualization. I want to be the best, and whatever it is that I'm doing, I want to be the best at it, right? And I think we're in a world, right, where you've got to walk on eggshells with what you say, right? Where you've got to, you can be put in, and this is social media amplifies this, where it's you really do have to walk on eggshells, right? And I think it's this weird fucking abstraction, right? Where it's you got to be yourself, but you can't be yourself. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know, because everybody's obsessed with saying be yourself, right? But you can't really be yourself, right? Because you get fucking pitchforks, you know, like people running out there. And I think from that perspective, right, I think it's like when you're in those situations, I really love that whole notion that you just said, where it's like, be whatever you got to be to get the job done. Because only work on things that are a part of your fucking self-actualization. Yeah. It's like, I feel like a lot of people can sometimes put themselves in situations where they're not necessarily working on things that truly fulfill them, or they really want to achieve. You know what I mean? And it's like, you're in that situation there where it's like, okay, if I really care about this and this is really where I want to go, I'm going to do what I got to do to get there.
It's a pathway, man. It's like, you look at like the fitness industry where people try and look at niching too early and they go, I only want to work with these people, and they disregard working with all the people that potentially pay the bills, and it's a stepping stone to get there. That's being the person you need to be in the point of your business, aka being the person in the room that you need to be. Like, sometimes there are runs you need to go through to move up the ladder.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, I think people tend to forget the size of the world that we live in. And you can't, you know, if you try to be yourself, or you just follow a moral code for everything, you're going to struggle. You know, you're going to struggle to grow, because you're not going to be able to do, like, the way I see it, no one's dying, no one's being put in a super negative position. What does it matter?
From you saying you like golf, no one's getting it yet.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the point. And the unfortunate reality behind it that people don't understand is that when you start operating that way, when you start factoring in human psychology and how people function and how they operate, and adapting to how they operate to put yourself in a better position, you will get put in better positions. Because that is what happened to me. So I went through that 2-year period of stagnation. Then I got basically 3 promotions, all within the space of literally just over a year. And the income that came with that was significantly more. You know, I went from just a normal position to a team leader position to a manager position, to them creating a head of department position for me for that specific area, because they wanted it to grow. I went from literally being on a desk every day to being flown to London to work with the office that's being set up there, to flying to Cyprus. I'd never figured that I'd end up in Cyprus, but we needed to set up some stuff there, and I was there setting it up. And it was like, that's all because I started realizing that I'm playing the game now. You know, every time I go into a meeting, there's an outcome of the meeting that I'm expecting, and I will lay the groundwork to get that outcome. I already know that the job aspect, because I'm good at my job, but human psychology, I'm playing that game. You know,
reciprocation, right?
Talking about golf 3, 4, 5 hours before the meeting. I'm talking with the right people, getting them on my side before we get into that meeting. What happens? The outcome that I want.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, I mean, I've read a lot of those books that you've mentioned, and there's a few other ones, but it's like, you talked about marketing yourself, and it's almost the same thing. Yeah, like, marketing yourself and what you're doing is the exact same thing. You're creating a perception of who you need to be, yeah? And it's like, you know, there's that chair and there's this couch. But the reality is that they could be marketed in completely different ways to be completely different products. And in those situations, I think that's kind of what we're talking about here. It's like, you know, imagine yourself as a product. How do you communicate your identity based on the end goal? And if that end goal is revenue, and we're trying to sell as much revenue, and we can correlate that to progress, then you need to market yourself in a particular way. And I actually really enjoy how you've taken those, like the 48 Laws of Power. It's a classic, you know, like, it's literally, I mean, I've read that, Art of War, a lot of those books as well, but I've also read some other ones, like there's one called Alchemy, by Rory Sutherland. He's a marketing guy. You know, there's a few other ones, Influence by Dr. Geraldini or something like that.
Not sure, yeah.
But he talks about things like reciprocation, right? And it's like, when somebody buys you a birthday present that is 3 times as much as anyone else's birthday present that they bought you, or what you expected, the first thing that comes out of our mouth is, oh, you shouldn't have, right? And it's like, I already feel like I owe you. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, but that's the game, because like, that's marketing 101. You know, we've all been to McDonald's, and what's the best thing about McDonald's? The extra chips on the bottom of the fucking bag. That's not a coincidence. Yeah? Why does that happen every time? Right? Because it's reciprocation. Yeah, like, naturally we feel good.
I don't know about you, bro, but whenever I get Macca's, I don't feel like I owe them anything.
Well,
they owe me a new toilet. It is that simple.
Yeah, but it's funny because all this stuff happens on a subconscious level. Like you said it
100%.
before, these guys, you were making all these moves and nobody had absolutely any idea, but subconsciously you're just bringing them to you.
Yeah, 100%. And it's when you bring that subconscious to the conscious and bring it forward, and you start realizing, that's when you start making these moves. Like it's just, I see so many people that are great and they're fantastic, but no one knows who they are. They haven't set up those relationships. They haven't put themselves in front of the right projects. They haven't put themselves as the person, even if they did all the work. So there's someone upstairs taking all the thing for it. And a lot of the times, and I think it comes down to those things where we just want to be liked as people. It's that whole, these people think that, and this is something huge, especially pushed on social media, which just doesn't exist in the corporate world. And if you come into it with this mindset, you're going to get eaten alive. But the whole, I'm my own competition, it's me versus me. It's like, no, it's you versus you. The further up the ladder you go, the less positions there are. There's only one CEO. If you think everyone's going to be CEO, no, that's the measuring stick. And that's what I mean. A lot of people don't want to jump in that competition. It's like, when we used to hear people at work just saying, when we used to have competitions to try and get the higher sales and stuff, and people are like, oh, I'm just going to try and beat my last record. It's like, cool, you're not even part of the competition then. Like, well, I'm not even focusing on you. I'm focusing on what that guy's doing. That's what is his point of difference, and how can I take his point of difference? How can I find it, take it, and refine it, and make it my own, and beat him at it?
Yeah, and I think that's from a business perspective, I think the whole notion that there is no competition, like we're all in this together trying to push this forward. Like the reality is, man, like people are subconsciously making decisions every day for their own survival. Like there's people out there, and you know what? The worst thing is like they won't even admit it. Like it's those people that won't admit it that say there is no competition. We're all on the same level. We're all doing this. It's like, no, fuck that. There is competition. There is warfare. That's the reality because like you said, at the end of the day, yes, the governments and the Fed will print money and they'll put more in, but the reality is that there's a certain amount of money that exists in an economy, and for someone to make money, someone else has to lose it.
100%.
And that's the bottom line when it comes to business and competition, because differentiation is what drives margin, it's what drives revenue. When something is different and it meets a certain psychological need, that's when a product takes off.
Well, I want to tie this back into something that we teach on product with understanding 3 levels of product, and we talk about it as a physical product that people can purchase or that people are providing value on. But something that you said there, Josh, is making your point of difference, right? You as a person, as the business owner, can actually be your own product as well. If you treat yourself like a product, figure out your core, figure out your actual product, which is what you do, and your augmented product is your point of difference, you can fucking dominate. You can be in a position where if you actually start to treat yourself as the owner, as an actual product of your business, because let's be honest, people buy people, right? In any business, whether it be product, whether it be service, like people buy people. They need to know, like, and trust you. And if you can start to understand the 3 levels of product that you can actually provide value on as a person, your core, so your values, how can you express your values to people in your business? How can you give them your actual time or your service or your product, which is the actual product, and then the augmentation.
Well,
point of difference.
People don't buy what you do; they buy how you do it.
100%.
Right, and that's the drive home factor. Like value proposition. Like that's born from differentiation. What can I do that my competitors cannot? And I think when you figure that out on an individual level, like that's where you can start to play chess, right? What can I do that my competition cannot, right? And that's where it's those little things like you talked about just getting in front of that person at the particular time, the CEO, making sure you're at the coffee shop when they're at the coffee shop, like all of these little different things that you can do, like putting yourself in situations when someone's going to be there.
Yeah.
We all fucking remember this, man. This is grade 6 high school shit. When I liked, Sally across the road, I made sure that there was, at school disco, I was dancing in her corner. Yeah, and this is ingrained into us instinctively, right? But I feel like a lot of people lose this as they get a little bit older because they're playing that moral game.
Well, bro, just to second that, you look at when you were in primary school, high school, when you first started talking to girls, who'd you talk to first? If it was the person that you liked, would you be talking to them? No, you'd be talking to their best friend. You'd be talking to the friend. Oh, can you, yeah? Bro, I used to do that all the time. Bro, I was the king.
Oh, man, he knew the way. He knew the way. No, it's true, though, and it's funny because same kind of thing, again, transitions in corporate life. People don't understand the opportunities that are in front of them because their morals or how they interact. We care a bit too much about how people perceive us. And often it can get in the way because we don't want to not only not stand out, but we don't seize an opportunity. Best example of this is when you're in big icebreakers, right? I remember the last one that I was in, it was quite funny. Big icebreaker opportunity. We had a new person that was coming on board in the management. And so they did the typical round table. Tell us, tell them who you are, give them your name, and tell them a bit about yourself. Everyone messes this up. Everyone comes in and they'll be like, "Hi, I'm John. I work in accounts, and I like to play golf in the weekends." And then someone will come along and be like, "Hi, I'm my name is Michael. I love to play. Work in the IT section. I love to play video games." And every time these opportunities came, I always thought this is your opportunity to push that brand over. So whenever I came up, I'd be like, "Hi, my name is Josh. I work on projects here. I like to consider myself reliable. I try to get everything that we can across the line in the company. So I try to put my hand out there whenever anyone needs it." So with that being said, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you don't know if you can get something over the line, just come to me and I'll see if I can help. All of a sudden, he knows what I'm about, and that person knows, man, if I need something to get done, Josh is the person. I haven't told them anything about who I am. I don't want him to like me. I want him to see me as value. I want him to look at me and go,
use me.
Yeah, use me, because, we can get ahead. If you put something in front of me and I can put it in front of the right people because I've marketed to the right people, I'll look great, you'll look great, we'll both look great, we'll get more money. Simple as that. And that's what I mean. People just miss these things because they're not thinking about it, or they're thinking too much about themselves.
It's really interesting. I look at this from a tech business perspective, or even just networks, right? Like, networks is how we build wealth. That's the reality. We look at the value of a network, and then we enter ourselves into that network, and we work together in a tribe to create more wealth. That's what a business is. That's what, when we invest in a company, that's when we invest in Bitcoin. There's a lot of us trying to get that over the line, right? We're getting a network in order to build wealth. There's a reason that every single one of us will brag about something that we're in, and it's because we want to get more people into the network, because we know that we can make it more valuable. But whichever network you're in, this is the whole thing. It's like, if I want to get into this network, like if I walk into a room of CEOs and I'm like, I want to hang out with these guys because they're fucking loaded, they're successful, they crush it, they execute. I can't walk in there and be myself. What are you fucking kidding? Like, you're not
gonna be going in there shadow boxing.
Yeah, but that doesn't. And like you said, when I'm around my homies and like my family and like my friends, I'm gonna be someone who's different. But when I'm in a certain situation, in order to get this person to respect me, I'm gonna have to be someone. I'll give you an example. I went over to America, and I caught up. I knew this so this is the whole thing, like playing chess, right? There's a guy over there named Brandon Ayanbadejo. He's now probably one of my biggest mentors. We have conversations all the time. He's always giving me advice. When he comes down to Australia, we go out for dinner. When I go over there, this guy is ex-pro bowler in the NFL, won a Super Bowl ring, then left that, studied an MBA, then started a company, really successful, one of the fastest growing franchises in America, owned all of Bay Area and LA, I just remember getting an email knowing that I had the opportunity to talk to this guy, and it's like everything changed. It was like, I got to go in there and I got to show that I can be of value. And I showed that value, and that's kind of what got me that relationship. And then there's been times where I've been able to, there's advice that he's given me that will sit with me for the rest of my life, that changed the trajectory of my career, my business, and my life. And I think that in itself is you got to understand that when you get those opportunities, you have to step up to the plate, and you have to be willing to make those changes.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got to be conscious of it. You've got to understand that you need to be what you need to be in that scenario. Again, you can be yourself in front of the people that matter to you, but when it comes to actually trying to get somewhere, you've got to be what the situation requires you to be. And again, at the end of the day, like I said, we're all selfish at the end of the day. We just don't want to admit it to ourselves.
That's the fucking drive home point.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Why is, if you, and it's real funny because a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people can look at it like manipulation. They can look at it from a negative perspective. And it's but that's going to be in you from a selfish perspective. So one thing I was thinking about today about that, because I was talking with a friend about it, was at the end of the day, we've all got a bit of ugly in us, right? Rather than trying to do your absolute best to get rid of it, find out a way that you can use it in the right places. And if you use that ugly in the right places, use the rest of the positive aspects about you to people that matter. But at least you're not trying to fight the conflict within yourself. Use it. It's there. You know, you're going to want something. You're going to want to get ahead of some people sometimes. You can't keep pushing that narrative of, oh, it's just me versus me. You get angry when you don't come first.
Well, that's ingrained into us as a society, man. You look at a kid, right? You look at a child, man. They put the circle peg in the circle hole. What do? They they fucking get excited, right? Winning is ingrained into us, and it's normal, and then it gets bred out, right? And then we start to feel guilty and self-conscious when we start to celebrate small wins or things when we get ahead, or when, like you said, for someone to make money, someone else has to lose it, right? For someone to win, someone has to lose, right? Now, people are so busy winning and they're getting fucking pissed off. They're like, oh no, I feel bad. I don't want to celebrate it. You know, I just got lucky. Own it. Sometimes you put the work in, you did the thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's no such thing as morality if there's only good in the world, right? I think there's a monster inside of all of us, and I think morality only exists when you learn how to control that monster. And when you learn how to control that monster, that's when you can use it to, propel and achieve things in life that are going to push the world forward.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, funnily enough, I feel like it's more arrogant to ignore the competition. You know, it depends on how, like, at the end of the day, a competition is a competition. It says more about you, about how you handle when you win or lose. You know, I love competing. I'm hugely competitive in nature. And I readily admit, if someone beats me, I'm proud to say, you beat me at my best. You know, I acknowledge that. And that means I've got things to work on. And if I win, I'm like, cool, fantastic, you know, great run. We keep it moving. But nothing worse than, you know, like bodybuilding competitions. I mean, come on. Every time someone goes to a bodybuilding competition, all they say afterwards is like, oh, you know, I beat the last person. Yeah. Or, no, worse, they just say, oh, you know, I was just going up there because it was a personal achievement. It's like, then why were you doing it? Why were you getting on stage if you weren't competing? You're almost insulting the person that won by saying, no, I was just doing it for myself anyway. So you're saying that because you didn't win. Just admit that you took a loss. There was a lot to learn from in that scenario, and just keep it moving.
Dude, if you see it all the time where people like, oh no, I just want to tick it off. Like, well, we need to fucking win. Like, why go to that point? Because competing ain't fun. Yeah. It fucking ain't fun. It sucks. Why go to that level if you're just trying to tick a box? But anyway, back to the point, because I could rabble on about. Don't get me started on competing. I'll go there forever. So you did well.
I want to come back. I want to come back to it. There's something I want to really talk about, and I think it's like, what are some of those principles, right? Yeah. Like, because you talked about, like, I can see there's a certain style, there's a certain set of principles that you go by, and that you would also teach. Like, when it comes down to it at the core, what are some of the most important principles, you know, that you would implement
that got you
yourself?
To where you were, that got you to escalate and move through the company at the pace you did, and obviously to now what you do now?
Like, the way I always summarize it up, and I know it's a really weird way of saying it, but you've got to understand, you've got to be inherently savage to an extent. You know, you've got to understand, you've got to take emotion out of certain things. You know, don't be led by emotion. Be led by rationale. Be led by logic. You know, be. What got me to where it got me is to understand that I'm playing that game. You know, playing chess. One of the big principles is treat life like a game of chess. Treat your work like a game of chess. Treat everything that you're doing like a game of chess. Think 4 or 5 different moves ahead, and take that emotion out of it. Be savage. Be ruthless with it. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, again, we're not going to be here forever. So you might as well take advantage of the opportunities you have in front of you and do whatever you need to do to get to the end of that goal. So that's kind of what I push to my students as well. Same thing. Everyone I mentor, all of my clients, just take emotion out of it. You're here to get ahead, and acknowledge that, and there is nothing wrong with that.
So when you bring someone into a room and you get on a mentoring call, like, what are generally the problems you're facing? Like, what are the things that you're seeing come up? Because I know there is a big difference between corporate and running a small business, but I think there's going to be crossover principles to the problems that they come across.
The biggest thing that my clients struggle with, again, is they're very, very good at their jobs. No one's denying that. They're great at what they do, but what they don't understand is they don't know how to communicate with people. They don't understand human psychology. They don't understand how to maneuver through egos, especially. They don't understand how to play to different people. And that's why they're not getting the opportunities that they're getting, because they're just doing their work and expecting a gold star and expecting to get somewhere.
It's like arguing with someone, right? It's like sometimes arguing, like you got to understand that if you actually want what you want out of the situation, arguing is not the best way to go about it. Even if you disagree with someone, you disagree with what they're saying, you have to understand that if you argue with them, like there's a high chance that there's not going to be resolve, and then you might not be able to get what you want out of that situation.
Because you both think you're right at the end of the day. That's the thing. Like, man, I say to Ali all the time, is like, we argue. No, but like at the end of the day, bro, it's the same in business. If you can sit there and argue about something, but if you can actually take a step back and go, we actually both think we're right now. It doesn't fucking matter who is. We both think we're right. Let's just figure out the problem, like to move forward, right? Because sitting here going on about who's right or wrong doesn't actually help the fucking problem. It's like, what's the pathway forward?
Yeah, I agree, and it's really it's taking that ego and taking that pride out of it. Like there's been multiple times, and you don't understand how powerful this is when you do certain moves that just impact everything greatly. I was huge about listening to everyone in the room because I know what I know, but I don't know what everyone else knows, and I'm open to that. In the sense that my manager, me and my old manager, we hated each other. He hated the way that I operated and moved around him. But then we ended up having to work together on a few things. And every time he would say an idea, so we'd have conflicting ideas, I just started taking pride. I don't care. Like, I don't have pride, I don't have ego, nothing like that. If I said, here's how we should do it, and he goes, here's how I think we should do it, and that's a better way, I'd say, yeah, that's a better way, let's do it that way. And he'd be like, wait, what do you mean? And I'm like, your way's better than mine. Like, let's do it. And he'd be like, oh man, I just didn't anticipate you to do that. That's a power move in itself. You're completely throwing them off. It's like, your idea's better. You know, we want to get it across the board. At the end of the day, I don't want to sit here arguing unnecessarily.
And now, to what Kyle said before, he owes you.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's like we can bring emotion into this. We can get it over the line. And then, now it's in my pocket. Now all of a sudden he's like, oh, it's not as bad. It's the same thing as arguing. Like the way to control an argument is if voices start being raised, is don't match. If someone's shouting at you, just keep that tone. Eventually, they'll realize that they're just shouting at themselves. And then they'll calm down. My old manager used to do it all the time. You go, I think that's a really dumb idea. I think you're just trying to blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, well, why do you think that? Because blah, blah, blah. Okay, I understand that, but where do you want to go with it? Oh, why am I still yelling? He'd go, oh, yeah. And then he'd apologize at the end. And it's like, oh, there you go. You lost again. Again, still playing the game in my head. Every single time I do something, I'm still playing the game.
For sure.
So now, obviously, you've moved from fitness industry, finance industry, now into the mentoring space. What was that transition? How did you get there? So,
again, off the back of everything that I was doing at work, obviously a big part of my work was being able to understand how to trade, how to invest properly. And that's what I started doing quite heavily for myself. And I'm willing to admit that I got kind of lucky. COVID really hit the market quite hard, so there was a lot of opportunities to buy. Because of my experience in certain fields and certain areas, I knew what to buy at the time, and it
bought the dip.
Yeah, bought the dip, and it put me in a decent financial position, and that gave me an opportunity to get out of full-time work. So I said, okay, now's the time that I want to get out of full-time work and start exploring creative opportunities, like things that I wanted to do, like mentor other people. Because again, one thing that I did that I didn't really touch on is promotions within the company. People that were underneath me, I had so many promotions happen underneath me, and it was because I was teaching everybody. So I started at the team leader position. Then everyone that was under me, once I got promoted, they all got promoted up as well. Then we had a whole bunch of other staff down. And it was because they were just following the lines that I was following. I was just saying, this is what you should do. Build these relationships properly. Put your idea out there. Execute your idea. And because of the relationships you've built, it'd be exaggerated. Your success will be exaggerated because everyone loves you. And I realized that it was really easy I should teach this to people. And that's what I've been teaching them. I've been teaching them, I can't teach you your job. You've got to be good at your job. It's just a part of life. But what I can teach you is how to get people on your side, get a project underway, and get maximum return on that. And by maximum return, we're talking about money. Get promotions. Get more money in your pocket.
Bro, I want to ask a question because it fucking confuses me every time you post it. What the hell is a dub?
A dub is a W. Dub is a win. So I say
Thank
dub
you.
all the time.
Man,
What's this guy been doing his whole life?
Dude, I shit not like 10 times a day. He's like, another dub. And I'm like, the fuck's this guy on?
It's
What's
just
a dub?
Dude, you've definitely been living under a rock.
Clearly.
That is common knowledge.
Yeah, dub. Like I live by that. I consider myself. I consider myself not someone that's driven by passion or motivation, but driven by consistency and discipline. So I'm very big on ticking boxes, and every box that I tick's a dub. I wake up in the morning. I wake up consistently, 4 a.m. like clockwork. Get my running, get my training in, tick it off, and I acknowledge it. Again, people don't like sharing that they're ticking things off. It's like important. Show you the momentum. And a lot of people message me back saying, "Man, I'm getting up at 4 because of you now. Like I'm running and I'm ticking it off, and I'm acknowledging that I'm ticking it off, making those small wins, because those small wins lead to the big wins." Same thing in corporate life. If you just keep ticking boxes, keep building a reputation, keep building relationships, keep ticking small projects off, then you get a big project. It becomes exaggerated because of the environment you've built around it. All of a sudden, you're getting paid way more because of it.
It's funny, man. Like I'm like I've had a cold shower every day for like the last 4 years.
Still doing it.
Man, it's just the same thing, man. It's like I know that no matter what my problems are that day, right? No matter how stressful I'm about to walk in, no matter what stress I'm about to walk into, I know at the end of the day, if I wake up, I get up at the time I said I was going to wake up, I have a cold shower, I meditate. These are my little dubs, right? These are my little wins. And I know at the end of the day, I can tackle anything that day. It's not about anyone else. It's not about Macho Man, Randy Savage. I had a cold shower today. It's more about going in my head. I understand that there's these little things I need to do throughout in my morning to make sure that I understand I'm going to win.
100%, and it's just funny because, like I said, it compounds, and you don't realize how much it compounds. Like here's an example: make my bed. That's one tick. Go for a run. Another tick. Do my workout. Do my first meeting. Do my second meeting. Open up the international office. If I just started at my day saying, "Okay, I've got to do the international office," I've got no momentum built behind me. But I've been winning all day, so by the time that it comes to tick that box, I'm already just in the mindset where it's like, this is gonna be easy. That's why I love training in the morning. I train in the morning because I'm like, seriously, nothing can be harder than what I just put myself through physically. And that just, the rest of the day is downhill from here. It's really easy.
So looking at from going from the corporate world to, we didn't touch on it, but you've owned small businesses in the past before. Like, where do you see the crossover of the lessons that you can take from human psychology, understanding people, and playing the game of chess? How do you see that crossover into a small business? Like, or do you feel like it's completely separate?
No, I think it does, and I think it depending on the business type. But let's just say you're into what's a good business that will transition over to this? You're consulting, for example, right? One of the big things with human psychology is understanding your clients, understanding what makes them tick, understanding how to build that reputation with them so that you generate that referral business. A lot of it's not just completing your work. A lot of it is how you've made them feel along that journey. You've played into their ego. You've understood what they like, taken them for a game of golf. You hate golf, but again, they love golf, and they'll remember you for that. So when the time comes to go, hey, what do you know anything about Reese? And he's like, yeah, he's a lovely guy. Go and do work with him. It did not just come from the fact you completed the work, but it's because he's got fond memories of you.
The reality is, like we talked about it before, but it's perception, right? And that's like the thing at the core of absolutely every decision made is psychology. And you said it before, it's like, it has nothing to do with, reality is people are going to feel a certain way about something. And this is that book called Alchemy, right? He talks about it. He goes like, there's the logical way to do things, but then there's also human psychology over here. And sometimes we don't make decisions logically as humans. But he's talking about it more from, you can use that, right, in that game of chess. And I think like more so it's thinking of it like, okay, well, at the end of the day, I've got a decision to make right now. And that decision is I can either look at human psychology in absolutely everything I do, right? Or I can just kind of keep dwindling through life, right? And I think like when you put human psychology at the absolute core of everything, we purchase based on psychology. Yeah, we choose our partner based on psychology. And it's all about the way we make it, that person, that product, that experience makes us feel. And that you could have a really sound product, like we could be the best coaches in the world, but if I don't reach out to that person enough times a week, they're not going to feel like I'm supporting them, and that's going to change the whole experience. You could go to the best pasta shop in the world, and it could be the most tastiest pasta in the world, but if the place smells like sewage, it's not going to be a good meal.
Yeah, 100%. That's it exactly.
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, that's like Rory Sutherland, Alchemy. He talks about it. He's like, reality is it's not as black and white as what we look, and if you can if you can read between the lines, you can start to use those to get yourself progress. And I think, I mean, from what you've said, it's the crossover is human psychology. Yeah, like that's something that's ingrained into absolutely everything, business, corporate world, everything. Those principles of psychology don't change.
Yeah, 100%. And you just look throughout history. You know, you look at all the people that did things in history. You see that they managed to get people on their side. You know, it's wild. I'm a huge history buff. Like Alexander the Great, for example, someone who like conquered like African continent or all of the Middle East by the time he was like 31. And it's, you know, it's because he understood how to get people and drive people into backing him. So it's that thing. You know, at the end of the day, if you can understand people, you can do what you will with it.
100%. All right, man. We're going to wrap it up. I want to say a big thanks for coming on. Very interesting conversation. A lot of value there. But most of all, man, power to you. Keep crushing it. Keep playing the game. And for everyone out there listening, make sure you start playing the fucking game.
Play the game.
To finish off as well, one thing that we have been asking all of our guests is, who should we get on next?
There's a person that I have in mind that I think would be really good for you guys. A friend of mine, Sam. I'm going to see if I can get him on board. He runs his own company. Don't want to talk for him, but very, very successful person. And I think that hopefully if he comes, he'd do a lot. There's a Ferrari over there, so we might be able to compare his Ferraris to that Ferrari. That might pull him in here. Might try to get him in based on that. Awesome. But yeah, I'll talk to you guys a bit more about that for sure.
Awesome, man.
Well,
thank you for coming on, and it's been a very good, pivotal conversation. A little plug. Cheeky plug.
The last thing I want to say, this is chess. It ain't checkers.
No. Yeah, that's the one. I say that so much too. That's so true. But yeah, big thanks for coming on, brother. I really appreciate it, and we hope you all enjoyed the episode.